It is day 267 of the second Trump administration. The federal government has been shut down for nearly 2 weeks now, and there's no real reason to think this is going to end anytime soon. The House isn't even set to meet again for another week. The Senate will vote on a clean funding bill again tomorrow night, and it's expected to fail for the 8th time. And for the first time in our country, the White House has responded to a shutdown by seeing it as a window to fire thousands of federal workers. Those cuts have decimated the Department of Education, specifically the staff working on special education services, as well as staff at the CDC. Within a day, the White House began walking back some of those CDC firings. Here's what Speaker Mike Johnson said today about the cuts.
We know the president moved forward with mass layoffs, so we are also learning there were significant cuts to staff at the special education services. Are you comfortable with those cuts?
I haven't seen the specifics of that, and I don't know. I do know that each of the cabinet secretaries were asked to assist OMB to determine what the most essential programs are and what the priorities are for the policies and all of that. And I've been so busy on all this, I've not had a chance to dig into the details of each division and how it's happened.
Johnson also warned we could be headed toward one of the longest shutdowns so far. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance said there will be deeper cuts to the federal workforce the longer this whole thing drags on. But the military will not miss a paycheck. President Trump ordered the Pentagon to repurpose some of its research funding to pay members of the armed services. But some are questioning if that's even legal. While the shutdown drags on here at home, Trump spent today in the Middle East celebrating the signing of the Gaza peace deal and the return of the surviving Israeli hostages.
Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East.
With that, let's bring in our panel. Susan Glasser, staff writer for The New Yorker, Andrew Desiderio, senior congressional reporter for Punchbowl News, David Drucker, senior writer at The Dispatch, and foreign policy expert Hagar Chemali. She was the Syria and Lebanon director at the White House and was with the National Security Council for the first 2 years of the Syria crisis. Susan, I'd like to start with you and begin with the shutdown here. The White House is carrying out these unprecedented layoffs, getting rid of the people that run special education programs for children, then scrambling to hire back infectious disease experts that have been fired in the dead of night. None of that, by the way, necessitated by a government shutdown. But who is all of this helping?
Well, that's an important point. Let's start out with that because, the idea of a shutdown as a pretext to carry out further cuts of federal workers, this is a uniquely Trumpian twist. It's not at all clear that it's legal. It certainly is designed to inflict maximum pain once again on the people who do the work of making the U.S. work. In essence. And what I'm struck by is the fact that we're 2 weeks into this nearly, and there's not even apparently any talks going on. It used to be that a government shutdown was an acknowledgement of failure to a certain extent. This is Congress's job, after all, to keep the U.S. government open. And what I'm struck by is just the utter shamelessness that we're not even trying to come to a resolution. Speaker Mike Johnson, you played that clip. It's a remarkable moment, man. The guy is like apparently news immune. He's never seen anything that Donald Trump does. Anytime any reporter asks him about some controversial thing, he says, I haven't seen it. I don't know the details. I don't know. He's keeping Congress out, by the way. This is related to the shutdown, but a separate issue. He's literally keeping the House on permanent recess rather than bring them back to deal with the shutdown and to deal with the fact that there appear to be the votes in his own House to force the release of files that might put Donald Trump in the Epstein files. So I just think it's a breakdown of the government that we're seeing right now. It's not even trying to resume functioning in a way that is pretty striking with Republicans in control of all three branches.
David, I want to go to you to get a kind of vibe check of what's going on the Republican side, because you have a new piece out with your reporting, saying that Republicans are actually feeling pretty good about their chances right now. They're not seeing the kind of energy of 2018. They're not expecting a blue wave. That is, unless the economy gets shakier. So tell me a bit about what you're hearing and what their reasoning is for that.
Yeah, I spent last week checking in with a number of Republicans across the party's political spectrum, and there just isn't a lot of concern right now in the way that there was in 2017, the first year of Trump's first term, when voters were so shocked at his behavior. He wasn't even doing half the things he's doing in this second term, but he was talking about it, and voters rebelled, and Republicans were approaching the 2018 midterm election with dread as early as this point in that election cycle. This time around, much different. A lot of Republicans look at Donald Trump being reelected after everything that went on at the end of 2020 and during the 4 years out of office, and they look at somebody who's resilient and has a stronger connection with more voters than he did then. And they just don't get rattled the way they did in the past. And look, they are concerned about the economy. Almost the consensus I got was that his trade regime, the tariffs he's wielding, they wish he would just drop that whole thing and let the economy flourish. So that is something that's highly concerning to them. But everything else that we've been talking about, the shutdown, the executive overreach, the Justice Department going after Trump's political enemies at his direction, none of that is worrying them in the slightest, and they're very comfortable where things are right now, particularly because the party in the White House is supposed to have midterm headwinds. It's not supposed to be easy, but they see an opportunity to hold on to their majorities in the Senate for sure, and possibly in the House.
Andrew, do you think both sides then are just dug in right now? Because for the Democrats and the sort of Democratic base, the voters that I've been talking to, especially ahead of the No Kings protests planned for this coming weekend, they do not want cooperation. Being anti-Trump and not cooperating, collaborating with this administration is sort of the number one thing that comes up time and time again when I talk to those folks. So it doesn't seem like the incentive is there on the Democratic side to be the first to fold here. What are you expecting? What is your reporting telling you?
I think that's absolutely right. The posture of Democrats right now is to fight Trump at all costs. But what's ironic about that is that what Trump is doing by, making these moves that might be illegal in terms of moving money around to pay the troops, for example, or some other options we could see throughout this week that the administration could take in terms of paying other types of federal workers or restoring some programs that are not operating right now because of the shutdown. What those moves do is it basically removes pain points. And what I mean by pain points is anything that comes up in the near future that could make Democrats and even Republicans very squeamish about their sort of ongoing posture in this shutdown and want to come to the table to try to end it because of the potential pain that could come from it, right? If members of the military are getting paid, federal law enforcement officers are getting paid, the Women, Infant, and Children program, the WIC program as it's called, if that ends up getting funded somehow unilaterally by the administration, then Democrats can look at that and say, we are much more comfortable in our current posture in terms of not providing the votes to fund the government. So what the administration could be doing over this next week here could actually make Democrats feel even more emboldened and make it likelier that this shutdown lasts many more weeks.